a family member joins the branch of the armed forces, it's not just the soldier who sacrifices a life of their own. It's also the family. They fight their battles of fear, worry, and loneliness. Naperville News Extra's Jodelle Maglaya sat down with a woman of two different generations who share their stories of having their loved ones get deployed.
Jan and Mike literally fell in love at first sight, meeting on Memorial Day 1957 and getting engaged later that night. Mike's first deployment to Vietnam came just 21 days after their wedding.
We were able to spend Christmas together, and then a day or two after Christmas, we took him to the airport, and I didn't see him for a year.
To Jan's recollection, that wasn't the most difficult part of their relationship. She says going through the birth of their only child without him was much worse.
One of the hardest things was after Jackie was born, I was in the hospital, was then they had visiting hours, and the dads would come with these stuffed animals and flowers and things, and I didn't have a visitor. My mom was there. She was wonderful. She was a brick. But that was the hardest part. I really missed him then. It took us 6 weeks to decide on a name for the baby because we kept sending lists back and forth and trying to, eliminate this, add this, put this on.
This experience is one that Donna Perhatch, another military wife and former Army medic, could relate to. It was 2006 when she found herself going through a double hardship, saying goodbye to both her husband and her son, who were being deployed for 15 months to different locations in Iraq. Although it was difficult to send off both, it was much harder to see her son leave.
My husband has been a career soldier, and I know that he's got more years of military training. I just wasn't worried about him as much. I knew he would be in a green zone where it's a little bit safer, and then my son would be out in the field. So I knew that, and he was a brand new soldier. He had only been in since 2006, so he's my baby. Yeah, I worried about him.
In addition to her worries of her loved ones overseas, there were things at home that she also struggled with.
But I didn't really tell many people, so no one really knew. It's the little things, getting someone to help me shovel the sidewalk. Parent-teacher conferences were always a challenge, running from one school to another. It was a challenge to do it by myself.
Starting a new job as a nurse and taking care of her two other sons wasn't easy, and oftentimes she found herself thinking of the worst.
I recall one day in the hospital, I was with a patient in their room, and a news report came on about some soldiers killed. And they said, pending notification of next kin, that no names were released. And, without knowing, I always kept thinking the rest of the day, I hope it's not my son, I hope it's not my husband. And I used to live, every time I'd see a strange car out the front here, I used to wonder, oh gosh, I hope it's not someone coming to notify me of something, especially if it was like a dark sedan. That's how the military, they drive in the dark sedans.
Although there were many rough days, others reminded her that things were going to be okay. Those days were when she would hear the voice of her loved ones.
My husband was given a cell phone, and I had a way to contact him in an emergency. I never called him, but he used it to call home occasionally. My son, I heard from maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Counselor at Affiliates in Counseling, John Sorsey, notes the importance of finding consistency with the lack of communication.
It challenged it, doesn't it? And, it's hard enough to have communication when you are together. So when you are out of the house, it just is more of a strain. So the dynamic is, I don't get to see that person every day. I mean, I have to get to talk to that person every day. So, what can I do to kind of maintain some type of homeostasis, some type of consistency?
Writing letters was how Jan found consistency in communicating with Mike.
1968, we were writing letters, and Mike was great about writing. Even if he was going to be out on a mission, he would write letters ahead and have somebody else mail them, so I would always have a letter.
As tough as it was without him, Jan says when it comes to the communication they shared, she wouldn't have had it any other way.
I think it's based on the individual. Some soldiers may like letters, others may be okay with, logging on to, a social media site and seeing pictures and being able to communicate that way. It's really a preference. I don't know that there's a right or wrong way, but we certainly want to respect that person's preference and how he feels about or she feels about it.
And for Donna, neither were an option because communication between her husband and son was minimal. So she knew to cope, she had to fill her time with something constant to get through the long days without them by her side.
What helped me out in 2007 was finding an organization that's locally based, Operation Support Our Troops America, and I found out about them and joined and went to volunteer. And my husband and son were the beneficiary of the boxes. They loved them.
To this day, she still fills boxes to show her support to other families that are going through what she experienced.
So I really felt absence makes the heart grow fonder. We missed each other so much. The little things in life, that you come to appreciate, I think, when you're in that zone. I think when they came home, they appreciated being home more.
As for Jan, her husband has been home for more than 40 years and is still dealing with the scars of war.
You can say, came back, he was so lucky, he doesn't have a scrape on him. They're all changed. There's the person they were before they went away and the person they are when they come back.
Mike was recently diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, a mental health problem that can occur after a traumatic event like war, which Jan sees as more of an injury to the soul. Even with the latest findings, Jan says that staying by his side and fighting the battle together no matter what is key in his road to recovery.
Families have to know that what happens to one happens to all. And as much as you'd like it to be the way it was before, it's never going to be that way again. And once you accept that and say, okay, this is the hand we're dealt, now we have to play it the best way we can.
I'm Jodette Maglaya for Naperville News Extra.